Hello and welcome to The Top Story, a podcast with the headlines of the day from our correspondents around the world. I'm Do Hongyu. Coming up in this edition, thousands of counter-protesters in the United Kingdom have showed up on the streets to take a stand against the widespread anti-immigrant riots. Israel has vowed to eliminate new Hamas chief Yahya Sinwar, while Iran and Hezbollah are threatening to strike Israel anytime. And U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and her running mate Tim Walz are focusing on battleground states. We begin from Europe. In the United Kingdom, thousands of counter-protesters have showed up on the streets to take a stand against the widespread anti-immigrant riots. Muslims, trade unionists, locals, and many others gathered across various cities. Anti-Muslim riots erupted across the country after false rumors alleged that an Islamist migrant was behind the fatal stabbing of 3 young girls in northwest England early last week. Over 400 have been arrested and at least 120 charged nationwide in connection with the disorder. Yahya Sinwar has the story.
Taking no chances. In Walthamstow, East London, windows were boarded up. On the western side of the city, UK Immigration Help's office in Brentford was closed to visitors. Far from riots in northern England, this building was included on a far-right list of potential targets. A few kilometres away, shops and a hotel closed early. The threat of violence and more disturbances was enough for them to lock their doors.
I don't expect any troubles, but things can change because this hooligan and vandalism is going like from very, very high top scary moment. It's a scary moment.
And would you shut the shop if that happened?
I have to close the shop.
It's been a week of riots in parts of the UK, across 22 towns and cities, mostly in England. Against the backdrop of civil disorder, police conduct is also closely scrutinised. Some far-right supporters claim that British police officers often react tougher against them than when policing in ethnic communities. The police refute that, but are adapting in how they are trying to stop the violence.
We've changed our tactics in the last couple of days. So besides marshalling more officers, we're brigading some of them at key strategic locations across the country and show overwhelming force so that the criminals and thugs on the streets don't succeed.
This is the biggest challenge yet for Britain's newly elected government. Its deputy leader visited Rotherham, where a hotel housing migrants and asylum seekers was attacked last weekend.
Coming on the streets, throwing missiles at the police, attacking hotels like this one I'm here today is not a legitimate grievance. It's not the way we do politics in this country, and nobody should be condoning that. This is thuggery, this is violence.
This is a real test for the new government, especially after the riots have spread right across the northern cities, but also in Belfast and London and Plymouth in the south. This event is a demonstration against racism and against the disturbances of the far right.
Another night of violence was expected, but there were many gatherings like this one in Liverpool near migrant centres. The priority for the authorities, however, is to stop all the violence and disorder.
That was Yahya Sinwar on the anti-immigration riots in the UK. Turning to the Americas, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and her running mate Tim Walz are focusing on battleground states. They'll campaign in 7 states over 5 days and started with Wisconsin and Michigan on Wednesday. Their Republican rivals Donald Trump and J.D. Vance have been pretty in step with the Democratic duo on the campaign trail. Nathan King has more.
They've both been hitting the campaign trail in the places that Harris wants to make Walz make a difference. That's the neighboring states of his state, Minnesota, Wisconsin, then Michigan. They have already obviously been in Pennsylvania. Bad weather is going to hit both the Harris and the Trump campaign later on in the week with that hurricane moving up the East Coast. So they may have to cancel, it looks like, trips. But you can tell the enthusiasm in the Democrats as they hit Eau Claire, Wisconsin. This from the ticket that really hopes they can close the gap and win the White House in just under 100 days' time. On the other side, that being Trump and his vice presidential pick, J.D. Vance, who are literally step and step with the Harris-Walz campaign, first of all in Michigan, then to Wisconsin, same place, Eau Claire, Wisconsin for J.D. Vance, also going to other states as well. They know that essentially if the Democrats can hold Wisconsin, Michigan and Pennsylvania, it'll be very difficult for Trump to win a second term as president. The enthusiasm is good for the Democrats at the moment. They've got their convention, of course, coming up later on in the month. They think they can ride that momentum. But I can tell you the Republican ticket of Trump and Vance really hitting back. Trump not on the campaign trail as much as Vance the last day or two. And he called into Fox News and said that hell would essentially be unleashed if Walz was voted in along with Harris. You know, he's got this image within the Democratic Party walls of being a sort of friendly uncle, a grandfather figure, school teacher, the coach, the guy that volunteered for the National Guard for a couple of decades. What the Republicans are trying to pace it now is a left-wing progressive who is soft on all sorts of issues, especially when it comes to law and order. We'll see new polling coming out, but I can tell you at the moment it's really an exciting race.
That was Nathan King reporting. Meanwhile, it's been a year since the historical Hawaiian town of Lahaina on the island of Maui burned to the ground. The huge fire also claimed more than 100 lives. The exact cause of the blaze remains under investigation. Eddie Stiansan accompanied a fire victim who visited the site of his destroyed family home for the first time since the disaster.
Now it's like I have no idea where I'm at. Like, I'm looking over my right, and like, I know I should be near my dad's house, but like, where am I?
It's difficult for Cody Ball to locate his childhood home where he lived for 20 years. Not a single landmark was spared when the Maui fires leveled his entire hometown. A year later, officials have finally opened the main road that passes through Lahaina, or whatever's left of it.
Yeah, this is where I lived. And then my truck was in this driveway, completely destroyed, burned out. 102
people perished in the fires, including some of his friends. Many were caught off guard as the fire alert system failed and communications collapsed across the island.
I am so frustrated by all this, is that they still could have sent the warning sign, because there were probably people sleeping or not really thinking there was an emergency, and to have some sort of siren go off. The infrastructure combined with just absolute negligence is just ridiculous.
A memorial site honors the lost lives with their pictures lined up on the side of a road. Soakai Taufa, who built it last year, is now getting ready to unveil what he calls the teardrop of Lahaina on the one-year anniversary.
Community is still in mourning, and can you see there's a heart there inside that is run through the whole teardrop, and those represent the missing tears.
Hundreds of displaced families were housed in hotel rooms for almost a year. Many had to move repeatedly, and some are now in temporary apartments paid by FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. A $4 billion settlement was reached last week, according to a court filing, though many still remain skeptical, including Mehdi Schweitzer, a local filmmaker who's been documenting the lives of several victims.
I'm not a big fan of settlements like that, because accountability is more important than money. If people are taking settlements, then it's, money's the most important thing. Give me money and I'll shut up and sign the papers. And I won't, and I will make sure that nobody needs to be accountable.
Memories of the tragedy are still fresh. Many in this community have come together and say they're stronger than ever.
That was Eddie Stiansan on the anniversary of the Maui fire. Finally, in the Middle East, Israel has vowed to eliminate new Hamas chief Yahya Sinwar, despite concerns of further escalating the conflict. 61-year-old Sinwar spent over 20 years in Israeli prisons and has been a Hamas leader in the Gaza Strip since 2017. He's also considered by Israel as the main planner of the October 7th attack. Jonathan Rijev has more from Tel Aviv.
What does Israel think of Yahya Sinwar? I think it could be well understood from the words of the IDF spokesperson, Rear Admiral Daniel Agari, who said Yahya Sinwar belongs right there along with Muhammad Def. Muhammad Def is, of course, he was seen as the chief of staff of Hamas, the head of the military wing, and the number 2 man of Hamas in Gaza right after Yahya Sinwar. He was killed in an Israeli strike last month. The IDF spokesperson saying Sinwar belongs right there next to Muhammad Def. That's basically the idea that Israel has about the new Hamas chief. But having said that, Israel understands that for world powers trying to kill Yahya Sinwar at this time is not exactly welcome. How do we know that? Reports are suggesting that exactly a week ago, after the killing of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, Israel did acknowledge to the United States, not publicly, but yes, privately to the United States, that it was behind the attack, causing fury in the White House. And President Joe Biden did not really try to hide that. He was asked a few days later what this killing means for the conflict in the region. Biden saying it does not help. Israel has been looking for Yahya Sinwar for 10 months now. It's been exactly 10 months since the October 7th attacks, apart from one image in which Sinwar was seen walking through tunnels, an image coming months and months ago. No record of Sinwar whatsoever. Israeli forces were allegedly looking for him in the tunnels under Khan Yunis, under Rafah, under Gaza City. Still no signs of Yahya Sinwar. Now he might be in tunnels somewhere under Gaza City. Israel wants to eradicate altogether the rockets being fired from Gaza, and that is why as soon as rockets are fired from one region, the residents of that region are told to leave in order for the army to come in.
That was Jonathan Rijev reporting from Tel Aviv. Meantime, fears of a full-blown war between Israel and Hezbollah continue to grow. Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah said the group would wait for the right moment to respond to Israel's killing of the group's top commander and Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh. Israel has also vowed to defend itself against all possible retaliation. Trent Murray has more about the situation from the Lebanese capital.
Hezbollah continues to indicate that its retaliation for what happened here in Beirut last week is indeed still coming. Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, has said that when that retaliation comes, it will be, quote, strong and effective. He said residents living in the northern Israeli city of Haifa should be prepared for any scenario, even going on to say that Israeli radars and American satellites right now are on high alert. But crucially, he indicated that regardless of what Iran does with its response to that separate explosion in Tehran last week, Hezbollah may be willing to act independently without coordinating with the rest of the Axis. Now, this, of course, is a threat that will concern the Israelis. Hezbollah is undoubtedly one of the most powerful proxies within the self-described Axis of resistance, thought to have some 150,000 rockets and missiles within its arsenal, and crucially, because of its geographic location right up on the Israeli border, very little warning time for the Israeli defence array to try and shoot those down if they were to be fired in a major barrage. So look, fair to say, tensions still running quite hot here. In the past couple of hours, once again, Israeli warplanes swooping low over Beirut, breaking the sound barrier, rattling windows, and really adding to a sense of concern for a city that already is worried it could be on the brink of war.
That was Trent Murray reporting. Before we go, here's a recap of today's top stories. Thousands of counter-protesters in the United Kingdom have showed up on the streets to take a stand against the widespread anti-immigrant riots. Israel has vowed to eliminate new Hamas chief Yahya Sinwar, and U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and her running mate Tim Walz are focusing on battleground states. And that's it for this edition of The Top Story, a podcast that brings you world headlines every weekday. For more news in politics, business, sports, and culture, you can subscribe to the Beijing Hour, a one-hour podcast news magazine program. We welcome and appreciate all ratings and reviews. I'm Do Hongyu. Thank you for listening.